All right. Well, special welcome to everybody who have joined us here in Greenfield, and special welcome to our growing online community and to the Oak Creek Franklin campus. Well, today is a special day for two reasons. The first reason is that it's Father's Day, and I tell you what, the more Father's Days I get to celebrate, I just think it's one of the greatest visions and missions is to be a dad. And I think it's it's one of the greatest honors, being a dad, greatest honor of my life, that we get a chance to influence, that God would entrust us with kids and influence them and all that stuff. And so can we just give a huge round of applause to all the dads and just how you make a difference and all that stuff. And the second reason it's special is because you don't get to hear from me that we have a special guest, Jon Horst, who is the GM of the Bucks, and that he is going to spend Father's Day with us. We're just really honored to have him. And just, you know, as it's Father's Day, you being a dad, what does this day mean for you?
Well, first off, this is really exciting for me to be here. The Ridge is our church, my family's church. It's been our church for over a decade. Some of you know that, some of you don't. It's really fun to be here and be with this community and do this. Father's Day for me, probably like most of us, the first thing I think about is Sophie and Zeke. Those are my children. They made me a father. And as parents, I think you know that your world changes instantly when you become a parent. And nothing else matters. All the things you thought were important before aren't important anymore. And you really just become focused on making them proud, doing your best, and trying to be successful for them. And then I think of my own father and my grandfather and how they invested in me, how they really focused and gave me their time and their effort and their energy really throughout their life. And my dad's still doing it today, and it's really special.
That's such good stuff. Well, most people know you as Jon Horst, GM of the Bucks, but they don't know your story. So share with us a little bit just about your story, your upbringing, where you grew up, a little bit family life, and when you became interested in basketball.
Yeah, well, my sister's here, and she goes to the Ridge also. She could probably attest that basketball became my everything at probably 3 or 4 years old. I've been obsessed with the game, sick for the game, almost feels like my entire life. We're from Sandusky, Michigan, a small community in Michigan, in the thumb of Michigan, as Michiganders like to do. It's right about here. Couple thousand people, 2 stoplights, no big box stores. And that's where we grew up. We have 2 younger brothers, great parents that kind of did everything for us. They really showed us how you can multiply your love, how you can make your children feel very unique and special, one of ones. I think our parents have done that. They've supported us and challenged us and taught us, gave us faith, gave us discernment, and really just gave us an unbelievable foundation to pursue our dreams and to become, anything that we wanted to be and believe that we could do that.
So this is not the same Sandusky, for the record, where Tommy Boy.
No, but everybody said this is not Sandusky, Ohio.
Okay,
this is not
Sandusky. Okay, just for the record.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Hey, tell us about just some significant things, whether good or bad, that just have really shaped you into the person you are today. That happened from your story, from your past.
Yeah, and I think maybe we can get into it a little bit as we go. When I get asked that question, whether it's about my faith or about how I got where I've gotten or the things that we've done, and I've been able to speak on this in the past few years, I always think of the people and the words that illustrate my story, that have illustrated my path, and really the impact, and it really kind of connects to what we've talked about here at the Ridge, about pursuing a lost cause, in the past, making someone your one. For me, it's all about the people and the words and the people that have invested in my life every step of the way that have allowed me to have these opportunities, and the people that have pursued me in times where I have a lost cause. And so there's a lot of those examples in my story.
Talk about some of the people specifically that have really invested in you and been a big part of shaping who you are.
Yeah, I mean, there's too many. So for those praise and worship type people, I love Maverick City Music, Millions of Miracles, Miracles on Miracles. One of my favorite praise and worship songs. And I always think about when he kind of goes to the refrain and the chorus of miracles on miracles, too many miracles, yada, yada. I think of the people. If you think of your life, there are so many people that have had an impact on your life, positively or negatively. But it starts with my parents. You talked about them. My wife, Mia, and I had some mentors in college, Jeff and Patty Simmons, Scott and Christy Samuels, people who we literally lived with separately who gave us money when we needed help financially, that were professors and helped us when we needed help in the classroom. They were our marriage counselors and mentors as we became engaged and decided to get married, and really helped us kind of plan that. I had my college basketball coach, Garth Pleasant, who was a minister for 4 years of my life. Every single day, we ended every practice with a prayer and a statement. He told us, make sure you go make good decisions today. And he's today still one of my closest friends. He called me this afternoon, someone who's a minister of my faith even today. And I think you think about my wife, who I just mentioned, like my faith journey has been on a different timeline than hers, but she's been part of most of it, especially in the last 16 years since we've been married. And her strength and the rock that she is for our family really allows me to not only pursue a career, but also be a grounded, hopefully good father, good husband, and continue to pursue a life outside of my career. And so I think those are some of the prominent people.
Yeah, talk about it a little bit. I thought this was really cool about your story, because you don't see this a whole lot, is you had some mentoring couples specifically that really poured into you guys, I believe, before you and Mia were married.
Yep. And
then I believe it kind of just really led you into, as you got married and all that stuff. Talk about that and just the role of mentoring, because it's so rare nowadays, but it's so critical.
Yeah, I think for sure. So I talked about Scott and Christy Samuels and Jeff and Patty Simmons. Jeff and Patty specifically, as we became engaged and decided to get married, we had weekly classes, I think it was, with them for almost a year before we got married, maybe a little short of a year. And they asked us the tough questions, the things that we had no idea. People that are getting married, you have no idea you need to think about. Do you like Mia's family? Does she like your family? What do you hate about her parents? What does she hate about your parents? What are you going to do with money?
And you said nothing, of course.
I love them, yeah.
Yeah, I love them.
Yeah. But they really asked us the tough questions and shared their experiences, and they were very open and honest about the things that they had struggled with and things that had been challenges for them that I just think, frankly, young people who are getting married don't think about unless people that have those experiences ask. And so they talked about us being a family before we ever have children. Once you get married, you're the family, and you don't become a family once you have children. Our kids will tell you that we tell them all the time, like we were a family before you.
Yeah.
And so just things like that is really powerful for us.
Yeah, and what I love about that is, and I'll tell couples this, okay, and I always say, and I always lead with this, okay, which is always a great lead, and I always say, okay, I'm going to tell you this, and 99% of the couples don't do it, okay, and they don't, and it's this idea of go and sit down with 2 or 3 couples that have been married 5 to 10 years, and they still love each other. And then I want you to take them out for dinner or for coffee, and the 2 of you just pepper them with questions. And the reason being is because we think we have to go down a road we haven't been on our own and figure everything out. And that mentoring thing, that's what I love about your story, you and Mia, is you had people there that helped you see those things before they came and prepared you guys. And it's such a critical thing. That's just a great part of your story.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
Really good. So you talked about your parents being really critical in instilling faith in you. What did they do, and what did that look like in your life as a kid?
Yeah, some of the things I think we try to do today, they lived it. We weren't a family, I think, that just spoke all the time about our faith or about our beliefs or Christianity. We went to different churches, so I feel like we had a variety of experiences. I joke, like my sister was baptized in an RLDS church, Reorganized Latter-day Saints church. We went to that church when we were younger. We went to a Presbyterian. We tried a non-denominational. Ultimately, we landed at a Presbyterian church because that's where my grandparents went, and my mom and dad then became members and became more involved there. But we just got to see a lot of different things, and then we got to go and do a lot of church experiences. Again, it was a small community, so if there was a basketball camp and you wanted to go to and it cost money, the church would sponsor you. And so then you're going to a church camp. If you wanted to go to a mission trip as a high schooler, it was probably through a church organization. Anything that was kind of happening in our community was through a church. And our parents allowed us to really experience all those things. And so I think by example a lot, and then by experience was really the things that stick out to me.
So I never asked you this before. So was basketball kind of the main sport for you then as a kid and in the high school and all that stuff?
So I was basketball, baseball, football, like
okay,
any
you were
good,
all right.
Yeah, I was all 3. Probably best at football. had very little interest going to play football in college because I wasn't good enough to really play, and I just thought it'd be a tackling dummy every day. I just kept thinking of the movie Rudy. I was like, that didn't seem like that was that much fun. But basketball, I could play every day, whether I was good enough to play or not on the team. If I was on the team, I could play pickup every day, no matter what. So really, I had the choice to play football or basketball in college, and I chose basketball.
You chose basketball.
Yeah.
So most kids that grow up going to church, if they continue with the faith of their family or faith of their parents, eventually there's a time where first it's kind of like their parents' faith, and then they get to a time where then it becomes their faith. When did that happen for you?
So this is my only chance to be a minister. So here I go. I get to talk on these topics, every once in a while, and it's the people and the words. And I've done a few speeches on the people and the words. And when you ask that question, I think of the words. And so I'm going to read something.
Yeah, please.
And this is because of you. So a couple of years ago, Mark sent me Craig Rochelle, which is a leadership podcast. And I digest that, 5 times a month. I listen to Craig. And I think he's really powerful and really good. And a couple of years ago, he had a guest, Lisa Turkhurst, who's really respected and on her own right. And she said this. She said, the image that I have of my career story, my faith story, and my family story are images of words, sentences, or phrases, and the memory around those words. And I would tell you that, how did my faith become my own? What's my story? It's really a series of words, phrases that create these images and these memories. And so I have many, but I'll give you a few. My freshman year at Rochester College, Christian College, Church of Christ, I had a New Testament class, Dr. John Barton, and he was presenting on the whole idea of faith plus works. And he played a U2 song for us, Walk On. It's the darkness keeps us apart, daylight feels like it's a long way off, glass cracks, don't turn your back, walk on, walk on. And it was this whole pursuit and this perseverance that he was talking about. And he said, God cares about cares about direction, not perfection. And that defined my faith. That will stick with me forever. Because the whole idea of faith and works, you can't do enough right to win God's favor, right? And you can't just believe your way into God's favor. It's a combination of. And so it's all about that direction, not perfection. Super powerful for me. Another kind of great story, and maybe one other is my daughter Sophie and I, a couple of years ago, she's learned how to ride a bike. We go for this bike ride, and she gets really tired, really fatigued, and she's like, I'm not taking another pedal stroke, and breaks down, and she sits in the grass next to a stop sign. I'm like, I'm going to put her bike and her on mine and ride her home, or we're just going to walk them or whatever. We weren't that far away. And so we sat and we talked, and I said, Sophie, let's just get to the next stop sign. Let's get on this bike, reevaluate, get to the next stop sign, and we'll see what happens. And so we get to the next stop sign, she's like, that wasn't so bad, I can do it again. And so we go to the next stop sign, and maybe a mile later or whatever it was, we're home. And we got momentum, we had some traction, and ultimately success. And I've thought about that a lot, and it really applies to life. For her, it was a big deal. There was a big challenge in front of her that we had to persevere through. And we broke it up into a bunch of little stop signs. Mm-hmm. And so in my everyday life, with challenges and things that we go through in work and life, just try to break up them small little stop signs. And I think that applies to your faith also. The last one, this is kind of a funny one, but so the rapper for some of the older folks in here, 50 Cent, Curtis Jackson, he did this Oprah interview 10 years ago, and he said, either pray or worry, don't do both. To me, that's faith. Pray or worry, don't do both. One of my 5 favorite Bible verses is Psalms 138:8. The Lord will perfect that which concerns you. And that's kind of the same thing. Don't worry about it. If you're going to pray about it, have faith, and God will perfect it.
I love that Sophie story, just from the standpoint of the way I kind of see it as well is sometimes I'll be out on a run, or a fast walk, as my wife tells me. But I'll be out on a run, and so sometimes you're just more tired, okay? And you're like, oh man, I'm far away from home, and am I going to make it? And then I always tell myself, just take the next step. And that's what kind of faith is like at times. Hey, just take the next step. And so I just love that story with Sophie. It's kind of that same idea. Yeah, just take the next step. And by the way, I went to seminary, and a seminary professor would have been caught dead playing U2 in one of our classes. So you went to a cool place where you got professors playing U2. Appreciate it. One of the things I love about your story is, so you go to Rochester, and then you kind of this opportunity where you can work for the Pistons for a whopping $0, or you get a managerial position with FedEx that's offered to you. And you obviously took the Detroit Pistons route and went the basketball route. Why is that?
So a little more context. So this is right near the end of my senior year, and then into kind of right when I graduated. Mia and I are dating, full-time internship with the Detroit Pistons, making absolutely zero. Started a nighttime loading trucks, full-time job for FedEx Ground, and was the head manager, maintenance manager for a trailer park. So I had 2 full-time paying jobs, one in the night, one in the day, and an internship squeezed in the middle, and a girl who I thought I wanted to marry. And ironically, was working really hard to get a ring so I could ask her to marry me, and she broke up with me because I didn't have any time with her. It's so...
Just to let you know, it's a pretty important part of a relationship.
Yeah,
time.
like I had no time.
Mm-hmm.
And so in that moment, breaking up with her, being overwhelmed with the work situation, graduating college, having that motivation to try to earn an income and pay back your student loans and all those things, I don't know, I felt like God really helped me focus on what mattered. And my passion was clearly, I'm working for an NBA team, and all I've ever wanted to do is be involved in basketball at the highest level I could. At some point I realized I wasn't going to be playing, then I wanted to coach, then I realized I didn't want to coach, and I had an internship working in the front office. And so I became laser focused on my passions. Mia, who later became my wife, and the Detroit Pistons, who became, 6 to 8 months later, it was a full-time job. And so, I turned down like a $45,000 a year full-time job out of college to stay with an unpaid internship, and I dropped the trailer park. Yeah.
I never asked you this. Why did you choose the front office route, not the coaching route?
It's a great question. Not many people ask me that. I really wanted to coach. My dad always coached us when we were kids, like at the youth sports level, and was, I thought, a really good coach. Even today, I feel like someday I want to coach, not at the NBA level, but someday down the road, I'll coach high school basketball or something. But when I got in the NBA, one of my great friends, Igor Kokoskakov, who was a Slovenian national team, coached Luka Doncic, was the Georgian national team, coached Zaza Pachulia, was the head coach of the Phoenix Suns for a year. He's just a really great coach in the NBA, was an assistant for us with the Pistons. And I used to work with him every day. I would do my front office stuff, and I would go out and say, Coach, I want to help you on the court. I'll help you with Lindsey Hunter. I'll help you with Amir Johnson and Tayshaun Prince. And he would let me help him. And one day he pulled me in the office and he said, Johnny, be the guy who hires and fires us, not the guys who gets hired and fired. And I'm like, I got you, Coach. And that was it. Like my energy went toward the front office and away from coaching.
That was it, huh?
That was it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's shift gears, talk about some Bucks stuff a bit. So you go from Detroit to Milwaukee, obviously. You're the director of basketball operations, and then the GM position opens up. Did you think you had a chance?
No. The short answer is no. There's a really long answer and story behind it. But it wasn't something I was pursuing. It wasn't something that I expected. I was honestly hopeful to be an assistant GM through the transition and everything that was going on. Had a lot of familiarity with our ownership and a lot of involvement in the overall process. And I'd interviewed a year before for an assistant GM and waiting position with the owners. No one knew that, but I'd spent a lot of time with them as part of that. But no, I had zero expectation or really desire at that time to do it.
So how did you get your name in the hat for that?
Just by, well, this is probably the best way to explain it. Like, there is nothing I believe that anyone can really do to control those outcomes or those opportunities in life. And I think one of the things that I've learned through these experiences, we're all replaceable. We're replaceable in our lives. We're replaceable in our career efforts. And what I mean by that, the positive and the negative, is it's really a lot less about what we do and a lot more about how hard we work and how much we prepare. The big opportunities in our life, I think, are almost always surprises, which means you can't really prepare for them in the moment. You need to be preparing for them daily and how you live and how you work. So when the opportunity presents itself, you're ready. And so how did I throw my name in the hat? Just being there every day, doing a job, and when the opportunity came, I jumped in. We made a very quick decision, like we're all in, and we're doing this, and we're going to make the most of it. But I really think, I don't think you can really position yourself for those types of things. I think you just have to be ready if it comes.
Yeah. So what was your reaction? I mean, you're the youngest one. What was your reaction when you said, hey, I'm going to be the GM of an NBA team?
It was a marathon interview. The whole process was kind of crazy. It'd be a fun interview someday, separate and apart. And Mia lived it all with me. But flew to New York on I think it was a Tuesday morning. Prepared all day for back to the point, I really didn't know what I was preparing for. I just knew I was going to New York to meet with the owners with zero expectation of what I was meeting with. I thought I had an idea, but ended up going through a 6-hour interview that ended about 12:30 Wednesday morning a.m. And at the end of it, they offered me the job. And I said, I need to call my wife, but I think that we're going to do this.
I need to get permission. Yes, right.
And went down Central Park. I was standing in Central Park, New York, and called Mia, and I said, been offered to be the GM of the Milwaukee Bucks, and I really want to do this, but I can't do it without you. And she said, first of all, you got to do it. Second of all, I love you, and I'll support you. And then I called my mom and dad and had a similar conversation.
What was their reaction?
I mean, just total elation and excitement, and way more excitement on the other end of the phone. I was exhausted. I mean, I was just kind of like, I need to get off the phone, and I'm the GM. Like, what am I got to go hire people? We had a draft in a week. I mean, it was a week before the draft. So
what was Coach's reaction? Because he recommended you to Detroit, right?
He did. Well, first of all, I can't explain the amount of text messages and phone calls you get in your phone. So eventually, I'll give you a really funny story. I don't know how much time we have, but I didn't know what I was doing. One of my best friends and someone who I work with now is our VP of basketball operations dropped me off at the airport the morning when I flew to New York. I came back the GM. When I tell you my phone was, it was like thousands of messages. You're just trying to get through it. I managed to call Dave and I said, Dave, I just need you to pick me up. I got to come back to the office. I can't go get my car. 2 weeks later, we went back to Milwaukee Airport to try to find my car. And drove around the park because it was 2 weeks before I went back to get my car. So eventually I talked to Coach and he was really excited.
The GM card didn't help you find the car at that point. It didn't help you. All right, so let's talk about the championship year, 2021. What was the feeling inside the organization going into the season?
Really healthy balance. I say healthy now because we won. I think it was a really healthy balance of urgency and desperation, but also belief. A little context, we had played in the COVID bubble season in Orlando. We were the number one team in the NBA. COVID hit. We went to Orlando, finished our season in front of electronic fan boards, and we lost to Miami in the second round. And there was a lot of pressure and a lot of expectation. Best player in the world, a lot of things on us, but the team believed. Giannis we signed him to a supermax extension in December before the season restart, so he committed to the organization. We'd made a Drew Holiday trade, and so there was this urgency and desperation, but there was also a lot of belief, and it was tangible. You could feel it and see it, and it really carried us every day.
So you're in the playoffs. Giannis goes down. Obviously, we're on the outside looking in, but what could we not see that would have been really cool for us to see when that happened? Because obviously that's going to test your resolve right there.
Yeah, there was a lot. There was a lot behind the scenes. There always is. I think it would be really cool to have had the inside look that I had on how he reacted to it. Immediately, there was a lot of fear, and we thought he had a very significant injury, and it was a real injury, but it wasn't as significant as we thought it was. And his resolve, his confidence, his kind of posture with our team that night in the locker room, because we lost the game in Atlanta, was really strong. His belief and his focus, he didn't make it about him. He wasn't obsessed with his injury. He wasn't obsessed that he wasn't playing. It was that I'm going to come back. You guys got to get us to the next step. We got to win the next game, and then we'll kind of go from there. And we went on, and we won Game 5 without him, and we won Game 6 without him. And a lot of people forget we went to the NBA Finals without Giannis playing with us for two games, which was pretty incredible.
Yeah,
and to see the way the guys stepped up and really kind of carried the torch for him was really cool.
So the buzzer sounds, Game 6. You're NBA champions. What was that like for you? What are you thinking about? I mean, just what's that like?
And have Mia come up and ask her.
Yes.
A lot of it's a blur, but again, it's the people. Like I have these lasting images of the people in certain moments that will always stick with me. And Andy Ellsberg, who's the executive for the Miami Heat, works with Pat Riley, great friend of mine. He's won a few championships. I want to win a few more. He said the best part about being an NBA champion and about experiencing things like that isn't necessarily that moment. It's 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, you're in the car, you're at a grocery store, and you think to yourself, like, that actually happened. Like, I won
That's
an
when it
NBA
hits you?
championship. Yeah, and I think that's probably true, but in the moment, running across the court and seeing my family, afterwards, we had this really cool moment in my office across the street, soaked in champagne, and just sitting there with just us, just our family, lights are off, kids got the hats on, they're exhausted, and just talking about what just happened and just sharing that was really cool. And I had like a little bit of a faith moment. Like I have a staff full of really strong believers, a bunch of great people that we work with, and we openly talk about our faith and we pray and at different times. And we had a moment, it was about a minute and a half left in the game, we knew we were gonna win. And so being superstitious, you're always afraid to like do anything that could jinx it, right? But finally we were like, we need to go down there or else we're not going to be out there for the trophy ceremony. So we come down and we're in the back hallway as the game is ending, and we just circled up and we talked about how grateful we were, how blessed we were, like how awesome it was. We really gave gratitude for God and the blessing of that opportunity for each other. And I'll never forget that huddle and kind of that exchange that we had with my staff.
Oh man, that must have been sacred.
Yeah.
So you become, obviously, you're NBA champ GM. And with your position itself, it's opened up opportunities that obviously you didn't have before. But obviously now this opens up more. What doors have you seen God open up in your life that he is now using you maybe in ways that you just didn't expect because of your position and success?
Clearly things like this. The last thing I like to do is speak in front of people at all. I love to Lance, I love you. I hate doing media. I hate doing press conferences. My first ever interaction with the media in my career life was the day that I did my press conferences at GM the Milwaukee Bucks, and it's probably the biggest. That's it. Like I, for whatever reason, God is creating this exercise, this endurance within me to do things like this, and totally uncomfortable and unnatural for me, but. I think that's one of the ways, and you've challenged me. You'll always say, Mark. I don't know how many people have. I have text exchanges that I delete, and I have text exchanges I keep. Mark's one that I keep. Don't tell him, but he always challenges me.
Most people delete it, by the way.
Yeah, I keep it. But you'll always say like, hey, ask yourself why God is having you do this right now. Like, what is the purpose for you, and what is the purpose for somebody else from this experience, and things like that. And so I don't always know the answer, but this is one of those types of things.
To wrestle with it, yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. Let's shift gears, and I'm going to give you what's called the Ridge Lightning Round, okay? So this is only great competitors can survive the Ridge Lightning Round, okay? So this is what the Ridge Lightning Round is. I'm going to ask you a question, and you got to answer the question no more than 3 sentences. Can you handle that, Jon Horst? Can you handle that?
Yes, I can.
All right, here we go, because
3 words.
Well, I understand. You're not very competitive. So, okay. So you become the youngest GM when you become the GM, and we've got a lot of young leaders here. What would you say to young leaders in our audience? What would you say to them? Did you learn just as a young leader all that stuff? What would you tell them?
You have to have non-negotiables. Culture is a result entirely of the people you work with and for. I don't know if this last one's a sentence. Have fun, don't take yourself too seriously, and surround yourself with great people.
That's really good.
Yeah.
That's really good. Okay, when I say your faith, what does that mean to you?
So my faith is everything. In this in this life, with all the challenges and the stress and the constantly changing things, you have to have a center, and my faith is my center. I'm going to pause there because I knew Mark was going to ask me that question, but I really wanted, I think this is the best verse in the Bible, or the best part of the Bible with faith. So can I read this?
Yeah.
All right. So Philippians 4:4-7, many of you know it. And I go to this all the time. And it says, rejoice in the Lord always. I'll say it again, rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your request to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. The power in that for me is just, it's the calm. So I think in leadership, what it means to me, my faith has helped me in leadership be calm in a bunch of storms. And I think it's evident. I think people see it and they ask about it, and it's been a really great opportunity for me to share my faith just by being calm in a bunch of storms.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
What are 2 or 3 things that you do on a day in and day out basis that help you grow in your faith that no one else sees?
Simple ones. I love the U-Verse Bible app. So I start my mornings, most of my mornings I try to with just the daily devotional, the daily verse. I love praying with my kids because I love hearing them pray. It's really powerful to hear your kids pray. And I love praise and worship music.
Everybody goes through struggles with their faith. Give us 1 or 2.
By the way, are we still in the lightning round? Or
Yeah, but you've broken that. You've broken that. Give us 1 or 2 times where you've struggled in your faith, and what did you do to go wrestle through the struggle?
1 or 2 times I struggled. I would say more. I'll give you more circumstances. I think I travel a lot, so when I get tired, it's hard to be strong in your faith when you're fatigued, emotionally, mentally fatigued, or when you're just really into your work. I think when you lose your focus and your center becomes the less important or the not as healthy things, your work, your stress, whatever it's going on. Those are my struggles. But you need people in your life that will help you realize that, and you got to have healthy things to go to. So for me, I pause, I refocus, and I kind of recenter myself, usually with exercise, being around my family, getting time with my family, and just kind of the community that you're in, the people that'll help you do that.
So research shows that men in church attendance and following Jesus is dropping rapidly. So why do you think men struggle with faith and following Jesus?
That's a good question. As a man, I can say I think we want control. We struggle with the idea of not having control. I think the whole basis of this thing is that you're not in control. So those are on the opposite end of the spectrum. I think the power, the way that I see Christianity and my faith is God gave us this unbelievable opportunity for free will. And try to put your energy and that power and that desire to be in control into making better decisions and worrying less about what the outcomes are. Because at the end of the day, we have no control over the outcomes. And so I don't know if that's very helpful or not, but I think that's probably why. I think we're so focused on control, and that's
men
not
struggle with control.
I think
I'm a little
so.
stunned. Yeah, a little stunned. Okay, as a dad, what are some ways you pass down your faith to your kids?
We talk about it a lot in our house. I think it's a pretty common part of our environment. It's a common part of our family, not just Mia and Sophie and Zeke and I, but our extended family. We read a lot together. We encourage our kids to read the Bible, to do devotionals with us. Mia always has music playing in the house, a lot of times Christian music. So I just think creating an environment where it's a common, normal, everyday thing, and hopefully they'll adopt it in their own way and on their own time.
And Sophie's already serving, right?
And Sophie is, yeah.
Sophie's really great.
She's on fire. I love it.
Okay, we're going to wrap it up with these couple right here. You're a husband, follower of Jesus, and a dad. What do you want your wife and kids to say about you someday? I didn't tell you I was going to ask you, by the way.
That I'm a husband.
You're a husband, a dad, and a follower of Jesus. What do you want your wife and kids?
Exactly that.
That's it? I gave the answer?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that would be pretty good. To have,
I would think so, but I wanted to hear it from you. I guess, what do you want others to say about you someday?
That I love this idea of trying to maximize, every opportunity that you get, and it's different for everybody. I hopefully people will look back and say whatever it is that I've done or haven't done, or the person that I was or wasn't, that we maximized those opportunities. And that's not like in a super public successful career status, but even in a relationship, man, like really maximized being my brother, and really maximized being my husband or my father, and it's probably unobtainable, but I hope that at least you're on that path, the right direction, right? Not the perfection.
All right, closing thing. This is your church, and the floor is yours. Give us a pep talk. Close us up. What do you want to say to us?
This is really fun to be in front of the church after all these years, and to have this opportunity. I get to speak publicly a lot and do this in a lot of different arenas and venues, but never here. And so thank you for the opportunity. Mia and I first went to the Ridge when it was at a high school, and then we came to the Ridge when it was in a Walmart, and we were part of that transition. We live in Franklin, so we were part of the original Oak Creek Franklin launch and the second Oak Creek Franklin launch. So this is our community. This is our home. I think everyone here should be super proud of our trajectory, our direction. Doesn't mean it's perfect, but should be really encouraged with what we're doing in the community. And we started with talking about the words and the people. It's coming off of really talking about that pursuit of lost causes and making someone your one. And I just can't say enough unequivocally, like, I have the opportunity to sit here today because there's so many people who've invested in me. And I would just challenge everyone to invest in somebody, because it absolutely matters, and take it seriously.
Yeah. Hey, can we give Jon just a round of applause? It's been a busy time for him and all that stuff. All right, I'm gonna pray for us, and let me pray for us. God, I just thank you for just stories and just how you work in people's lives, and the fact that we get to have Jon here. And you're working in all our lives, God, but just to hear his story, and just from when he was young till now, and just what you're doing in his life, and how he is really trying to just walk with you and use whatever influence you give him and maximize that for you. And God, I pray just some of those words that he said would just kind of just sit deep in our heart, that they would challenge us, they would encourage us. And Father, most of all, that we would take the influence that we have, because we all have it, and that we would use it and leverage that and maximize that for you. God, thanks for Jon, Mia, and the kids, and just thank you for bringing them, being a part of our community and what you're doing in their lives just here and the impact they're making. Father, most of all, we thank you for Jesus, because ultimately it is really all about Jesus. And we pray this in your name. Amen.